the man who personally managed funding for Kim Jong-un's nuclear weapons program, drugged border guards, carried his terrified daughter through a chest-deep, freezing river at midnight, and vanished into China with his entire family. This is his first testimony, and what he reveals about the hidden financial machinery behind North Korea's weapons development has already reshaped international sanctions policy. But before any of that, there was one night, one river, and one decision that changed everything. If this story matters to you, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring these untold testimonies to light. Together, we can be a voice for those who cannot speak. My name is Lee Hae-yesong. I was one of the most critical figures inside Kim Jong-un's regime, the deputy director of the Foreign Currency Procurement Bureau within North Korea's Secret Finance Department. My job covered everything from funding, Kim Jong-un's personal rule, to sourcing hard currency for nuclear weapons development. It had taken years to climb that far. The work was irreplaceable. I assumed I'd live out my days without fear. That was a catastrophic miscalculation. Strange things began in early 2021. State security vehicles circled my apartment building for days. Unfamiliar eyes swept past my windows. On the phone, I'd hear breathing, then a faint click. Something was very wrong. Not long before, I had walked into Pyongyang's Korean Workers' Party headquarters every morning. In a black suit, chin up, a foreign-made car and personal driver waited for me. Imported whiskey, coffee, foreign cigarettes sat on my table. As a matter of course, my family used state security's exclusive hospital, a place ordinary citizens couldn't dream of entering. My wife shopped at the party's top-tier store. By North Korean standards, we had everything. But the mood had shifted. Hundreds of senior officials were being executed. Thousands more had been purged. A top official in the Secret Finance Department, one of Kim Jong-un's inner circle, was arrested on fabricated espionage charges, accused of leaking secrets to China. Then word spread that a senior figure in a foreign trade organization had been publicly tried and shot. My palms went cold. In North Korea, one person's purge swallows the whole family. Under the Yunjwaje system, guilt by association, extending 3 generations, the arrested official's wife and children had already been dragged to a prison camp. Neighbors stopped talking. In the hallway, they'd nod and look away. Being linked to the wrong person, even through a casual conversation, was enough to trigger a state security investigation. That year alone, hundreds of officials and their families were taken away or publicly executed, some for falsifying trade figures, others simply for reading foreign books. I knew. My family was already in the crosshairs. One false accusation and we'd be erased like the others. That pressure worked slower than a bullet, but it cut deeper. Every night before sleep, the same questions turned in my mind. When will they knock? When does my name appear on the list? Lying beside my wife, I could hear her breathing shallow, unsteady. One night I looked out the window. A black car sat across the street. A cigarette glowed inside. The next night it was back. The night after that, same spot. The system I had spent my life serving was now closing in on me. No one who works at the center of power is shielded from that terror. The fear of disappearing without warning pressed down constantly. The man who had managed nuclear weapons funding, reduced to watching a car from behind his curtain. But I wasn't going to wait for them to come for me. It could be any day now. In that moment, the decision locked into place. Whatever it took to protect my family. Even turning my back on everything I had believed in, I would do it. Still, I couldn't let anything show. At home, I had to be the same man I'd always been. My family, my wife, my 23-year-old son Junhyuk, an officer candidate in the military, and my 20-year-old daughter Seo-yeon, a second-year student at Pyongyang University of Foreign Languages. From the outside, our apartment looked like any other senior official's home, but the sky beyond the window felt sealed shut. My wife noticed I'd gone quiet. She kept watching me with that look. I ate dinner and tried to seem composed, but every time I lifted my spoon, my hand trembled slightly. A few days later, I was on my way to work, when a staff member who managed personnel files for a key department approached me quietly. He glanced around, then barely moved his lips. "Comrade, be careful. The list." He said nothing more. He didn't have to. My name was on the purge list. My legs nearly buckled. A ringing started in my ears. My heart slammed against my ribs. What I had refused to believe had become real. That night, I started building an escape plan, one that included every member of my family. It was the only way. If a defection attempt was discovered, everything would be seized and the family exiled to the farthest corners of the country. Defection itself was extraordinarily dangerous, but it was the last option left. I traced the Amnok River in my mind, packed with surveillance equipment, patrol units, floodlights sweeping the water at night, like a hunter's eye. Under any other circumstances, I would never have considered it. Then, during those days of deliberation, an unexpected opening appeared. Through a foreign currency network I worked with, I arranged a quiet meeting with a Korean-Chinese trader. He looked at my face, then lowered his voice. "Deputy Director Ri, you don't look well. Is something wrong?" I hesitated. Then I told him. He listened carefully, glanced around, and said something I hadn't expected. "Mix sleeping pills into food and pass it to the border guards. They'll be out for about 3 hours. That's your window." My first instinct was disbelief. Something that simple couldn't possibly work. But there were no other options. Sweat gathered in my palms. If this failed, my entire family was finished. The moment came to tell them. I gathered my wife and children in the living room. I kept my voice steady, but it wasn't easy. "A time has come when our family must make a decision." That was all I said. Their faces went rigid immediately. My wife's eyes filled. Janyak clenched his fist. Seoyeon bit her lip, trembling. They already knew in some part of themselves. When I told them my name had appeared on the purge list, my wife stifled a cry. Then, in a shaking voice, "Then what do we do?" In that moment, I felt the weight of this family, their fear, and the resolve underneath it, together. With their agreement, I moved to the first task, obtaining the sleeping pills. Through covert channels the foreign currency network already used, I arranged for Chinese sleeping pills to be brought in through the trader. On the surface, it was disguised as a deal for premium alcohol and pharmaceuticals. Cold sweat ran down my back the entire time. When the pills arrived, a small bottle. I hadn't expected them to feel so heavy. This tiny thing held our fate. My wife went pale when she saw it. "If they catch us with this, it's over." I didn't waver. There's no other way. We can't just sit here and wait to be taken. Over the following weeks, I quietly built a relationship with the border, guards along the Amnok. I had an excuse: evening walks. My rank as deputy director of the secret finance department meant the guards treated me with careful respect. I brought them a pack of cigarettes one day. Came in from the south, they say. Give them a try. Their eyes lit up. South Korean goods carry a certain pull in North Korea. Curiosity, even excitement. On bitterly cold nights, I brought a thermos of hot tea. You've got a hard post out here. Small gestures, each one deliberate. Through those conversations, I mapped their rotation times, patrol routes, equipment check schedules. I noted which guard drank, which one smoked, which one had poor eyesight. Every detail went into my memory. Our lives depended on it. What looked like a neighbor stopping to chat was quietly becoming a blueprint for crossing the Amnok River. Timing was everything. Too much of the drug and suspicion would follow. Too little and it wouldn't take effect. I ran quiet tests at home, mixing the powder into bread, dissolving it in drinks, checking for color changes, for any smell. My wife and the children rehearsed their roles. Every gesture had been practiced. The day arrived. Each of us packed the bare minimum. Too much luggage draws the wrong kind of attention. Janyok's role: support his mother. Seoyeon: stay close to me. Hand signals mapped out for anything that went sideways. Final check: the bread with the pills, the drinks, emergency cash, basic medicine. My hands wouldn't stop sweating. I kept rubbing them against my trousers. This was it. Using transit documents obtained through covert channels, we arrived separately at a safe house near the border. October 2021, 10 p.m. Standing in front of the checkpoint along the Amnok riverbank, I forced myself to swallow. Each step toward the guards felt like walking through concrete. I forced a smile. Inside, one thought burned: please, just eat it. Don't taste anything wrong. 2 guards approached, later than usual. "Deputy Director, what brings you out at this hour?" Their tone had an edge I hadn't heard before. Had they noticed something? My throat went dry. "You've got a hard shift," thought I'd bring something. The guard took the bread. His hands paused. His eyes scanned me. Then he raised it to his nose and sniffed. Those few seconds stretched into something endless. Sweat ran down the back of my neck. "Smells good." He bit into it. My legs nearly gave out. The second guard unscrewed the drink and swallowed it down. The first hurdle was cleared. I'll head in now. I turned and walked not too fast. I slipped into the shadow of a nearby tree and waited, barely breathing. 15 minutes. 20. One guard yawned, leaned back in his chair. The second one's head began to tilt. Then it dropped to the side, still. I sent the signal to my family. Now, my wife Junyok and Seoyeon appeared like shadows. A single look between us said everything, but this checkpoint wasn't the only one. Others sat every 650 feet, and patrol units kept moving. Past this first post, though, we had a clear path to the riverbank. We crawled through the brush behind the checkpoint. Every rustle sounded like thunder. When Seoyeon's knee hit a rock and she let out a small sound, I clamped my hand over her mouth before the sound could travel. We reached the bank. Cold river air hit my face. Early October, the Yamnok runs like ice. The moment Seoyeon stepped in, her whole body seized. "It's too cold, father." She was shaking, barely whispering. I set my jaw and lifted her. Junyok braced my wife and waded in behind us, ankle deep, then knee deep, moving forward one step at a time. Then a dog, sharp, distant barking. A patrol dog. Then engine noise and a searchlight cutting across the water toward us. Patrol boat. Everyone down. I pushed my family flat into a patch of reeds and grabbed a floating log. The searchlight swept directly above us. Seoyeon nearly coughed from the cold water. Junyok's hand covered her mouth instantly. One ripple too many and it was over. Time stopped. The engine sound moved away. Only then did I exhale. We pushed forward. Mid-river, the bottom dropped out hip-deep, became chest-deep in 3 steps. My wife gasped. I can't keep my footing. I pulled her with one arm and drove against the current with the other. Junyok kept his chin above water, never made a sound. Behind us, flashlight beams swept the bank we'd just left. Voices. Stop right there. Move. Now. I drove through the water as hard as I could, 50 feet, 40, 30, then Seoyeon started crying. Full, open, unstoppable. "I'm scared, Daddy, I'm scared." Then my wife went under. Her foot slipped on a stone and she disappeared beneath the surface, her hand tearing free of mine. Junyok lunged and caught her arm. I grabbed Seoyeon with one hand and hauled my wife up with the other. She came up coughing. "I'm okay. Keep going." 20 feet. 10. Then the riverbed rose hip-deep, knee-deep, ankle-deep. We walked out of the water. Chinese soil. We pushed off the bank and into the undergrowth. A man stepped out of the dark. Korean with a Chinese accent. "Park Jung-soo?" He had the wrong name, but he was Huang's contact. "Follow me." 10 minutes through darkness. A small hut, no lights. Inside a heated floor, dry clothes laid out in the corner. We stripped off everything, soaked and changed. The warmth hit all at once. My wife held Seoyeon, who was still hiccuping through the last of her tears. "It's over, Seoyeon. You're safe." The real crisis came at dawn. The contact shook us awake. "Public security is searching the area. We leave now." Chinese police. If they caught North Korean defectors, it meant forced repatriation. Back to North Korea prison camps. The end. Within minutes, we were out the back and running for the hills. Seoyeon on my back again. My body had nothing left. Behind us, in the village below, dogs barked. Vehicles appeared. People moving toward the hillside. We ran. 2 hours. We came down into a valley, found the house the contact had described, low, worn old. An elderly Korean-Chinese woman answered. "Come in." Quickly. She took us to a basement. No windows. "Stay here. Don't come up." We didn't know if that meant 1 day or a week. 3 days in that basement. No way to tell day from night. The woman brought food twice a day, rice, kimchi, sometimes soup. Yoonji Seoyeon kept asking to go upstairs. 3 days without light is a long time for a young child. Junyok sat in the corner, barely speaking. I went and sat beside him. "You okay?" A long silence. "Dad, what about Grandma and Grandpa?" My chest tightened. I already knew the answer. Once the regime confirmed we'd defected, my parents would be swept into the Yonjwaja system, likely already taken to a camp. But how do you say that to your son? I pulled him close and said nothing. Then footsteps above, fast, urgent. The basement door flew open. "Get out now. Public security is an hour away." We scrambled up. She pointed to the back. 30 minutes on that path, a car will be waiting. We ran again. Seoyeon on my back. My legs had nothing, but stopping wasn't possible. A truck idled at the shoulder of a main road. "Get in the back." Boxes everywhere. We squeezed between them. No windows, just road vibration and cold air. 2 or 3 hours passed. The truck stopped. Yanji, the capital of China's Korean Autonomous Prefecture, a city where Korean is spoken on the street. The driver brought us through a narrow alley to a small apartment. "Wait here. Someone will contact you in a few days." 4 days in that room. We didn't step outside once. A broker contact brought food, instant noodles, bread, rice. Seoyeon tasted the noodles and said, "Dad, these taste different. Better than the ones back home." Watching her face light up over instant noodles, that cracked something open in me. We made the right choice, no matter what comes next. On the fourth evening, a new contact appeared. "You leave tomorrow, 4 a.m. 3 weeks followed. I won't give you every detail, but here is what I can say. We rode trains on forged documents, 3 inspections, each one a conductor's eyes moving between my face and the papers. We crossed mountains on foot, hours with Seoyeon on my back, shoulders burning. We crossed 2 more borders, Vietnam, then Laos. Hide, walk, ride. Repeat. A few days in a basement, a few in the hills, a stranger's house. Once we pressed flat into the brush while a patrol passed within arm's reach. I held my hand over Seoyeon's mouth. 1 day without food. Another day walking in the rain for hours, shoes soaked through, feet swollen. My wife's feet blistered and bled. We kept walking. Then Vientiane, Laos. A broker brought us to within a block of the South Korean embassy. 200 meters. Walk through that gate and it's over. I looked at the building, the Korean flag moving in the wind. My legs gave slightly 3 weeks of holding everything together, and it was right there. I took my wife's hand. Junhyuk and Seoyeon stood beside us. "Let's go." The security guard looked up. My voice was shaking. "We came from North Korea. Please help us." The gate opened. The moment we were inside, Seoyeon took my hand. "Dad, is this the end?" I nodded. "Yes, we're here." My wife sank to her knees without a sound, shoulders shaking. Junhyuk cried the way a young man cries when he's finally allowed to. Seoyeon, not entirely sure what was happening, looked at all of us and started crying too. Me, I couldn't. Too much had happened. The feeling had gone somewhere I couldn't reach. I looked up at the ceiling. Fluorescent lights, white and steady. We made it. 2 weeks at the embassy interviews, health screenings, paperwork, then a plane. When we landed at Incheon International Airport, I was brought through a non-public arrival channel. The broker's contact disappeared at that threshold. Men in dark suits surrounded us quickly. One of them met my eyes and said quietly, "Mr. Ri, we'll take it from here." Something in my chest loosened. South Korean soil. My family was classified as a special protection case. Movements tightly controlled, dedicated security personnel. Assigned, placed in an undisclosed residence. After initial processing, we transferred to Hanawon, the government resettlement center, for 3 months of education. Korean law, finance, healthcare, safety, vocational training. Junhyuk discovered skills training programs. Seoyeon's eyes went wide when she heard about university, transfer programs, and scholarships. I can go back to school? The most urgent matter was my wife. Her knee, injured in the river crossing, combined with pneumonia, both needed immediate treatment. A doctor spoke to her warmly. "There's a healthcare support program for North Korean defectors. Don't worry." When that door closed, I barely held back the tears. In North Korea, proper medical care had been a privilege of rank. Here, it was simply a right. Daily life was disorienting at first, but small kindnesses accumulated. A student giving up a subway seat. A neighbor bending down to pick up a dropped card. One evening, the family walked to a small park nearby. People were doing group exercises to music. Children were running and laughing. Someone had laid out a blanket and was sharing food with friends, all of them smiling in the open night air. I stood there and thought, so this is what this looks like. Seoyeon turned to me quietly. "Dad, here you can walk alone at night and not be afraid." But even within that calm, I still flinched at shadows. A black vehicle passing too slowly. A footstep that paused outside the door. A National Intelligence Service officer approached me carefully. "We'll keep your family safe, but you should understand the information you carry has real value." From that point on, alongside adjusting to a new life, I moved between the safe house and private meeting rooms, methodically organizing documents, reconstructing everything I remembered. Why I had survived all of this was becoming clear. To tell the world what North Korea actually is, that was the work I had to do on this free soil. As the debriefings wound down, quiet meetings followed. South Korean and American journalists, research institutions, policy officials. Every time I walked into one of those rooms, my heart was pounding. In my first formal testimony, I sat across from officials and said, "I survived this far because there is something I had to say." Then I told them about the organization known as the Secret Finance Department, entities that appear on the surface to be trading companies, joint ventures, diplomatic and cultural exchange offices. but function in reality. As the hidden financial engine for nuclear and missile development, hard currency earned abroad passes through multiple hands, laundered at each step, and ultimately flows into weapons facilities and research centers, the faces of U.S. Congressional officials grew harder as my words were translated. Pens moved quickly. I described what the pressure inside that system actually felt like. When a project ran behind schedule, orders came down from above. That pressure translated directly into on-site punishment. I told them how officials suspected each other constantly, how the reporting structure ran on fear. Every morning I walked into that building, I thought it might be my last day. My voice trembled, but I finished. They needed to hear it. Months later, I was told, my testimony and materials had prompted concrete action, refined sanctions targeting, enhanced vessel tracking, tightened enforcement on circumvention networks. At the same time, support programs for North Korean defectors had been strengthened. Resettlement funds, medical coverage, expanded education programs. What I'd carried out of North Korea at the cost of everything had moved through the corridors of international policy. That wasn't a small thing. Interviews continued, sometimes by video call, sometimes in undisclosed locations. My face was concealed, my voice was altered, only a silhouette was shown. One thing never changed. At the end of every interview, I said the same thing. There are truths people need to know. I'm simply finding the ways to tell them. One day the officer told me, "Your testimony has been incorporated into documents." At an international conference, it served as a key basis for strengthening the North Korea sanctions resolution. Something surged through me that I couldn't name. The defection had been worth it. What I knew of North Korea's inner workings was now part of the record-shaping actual policy, but the worry never fully left. The more I said, the harder North Korea would search. The danger to my family remained real. Still no regrets. This was why I had survived. Now it is 2025. I live somewhere in South Korea, under a different name, a different life. The nights when every sound outside the door made my heart drop, those are over. I still tense occasionally at a footstep in the hallway. Old reflexes don't vanish cleanly, but I no longer lie awake before dawn, wondering when my name will appear on a list. My testimony helped expose the machinery of North Korea's purges, executions, and power structure. It contributed to human rights issues being placed on formal international agendas. It played a small role in South Korea building a sharper security posture. The consequences also made my family a more visible target, but the agencies that protected us still check in. Brief direct messages. Confirmed. Stay alert. Ready to move if needed. That's enough. They respect the life we're building while keeping a quiet perimeter around it. Jun-yok used the welding skills he learned in vocational training to land a position at a mid-sized company. A promotion is coming. Seo-yeon reads Korean books on a campus bench in the afternoon sun. My wife haggles at the market and sometimes, mid-bargain, she'll stop and smile at the sheer ordinary miracle of it. At night I look out at the Han River, silver on the surface, completely still. Nothing like the Amnok, that cold black current we fought across in October. No purges here. No false accusations. No one watching from a car across the street. I think sometimes about how close it came. If the sleeping pills hadn't worked, if the patrol boat had spotted us 1 second sooner, if any one of those moments had gone differently, this freedom would not exist. Our escape may have tightened surveillance on those who came after us. That thought doesn't leave me, but neither does the testimony. I carried out of North Korea at the cost of everything, moved the world in a small but real direction, and other defectors now receive better support because of it. I say it to myself quietly like a promise I survived. I'll protect this freedom to the end. Somewhere out there, North Korean citizens are still living inside that system. I hope with everything in me that they reach real freedom someday. Until that day, I'll keep building this new life, one day at a time. If this story reached you today, I hope it meant something. Thank you for listening.